We like to think human romance is born out of culture. But the truth is, your love life was actually decided millions of years ago by a single tooth. 4.4 million years ago, in what is now the Afar region of Ethiopia, a creature named Ardi died near a river. She stood about 4 feet tall. She walked upright, but she could still grip a branch with her feet like an ape. And when researcher Owen Lovejoy examined her skeleton in 2009, he noticed something strange. Her canine teeth were small, blunt, almost harmless. That single detail rewrote what we thought we knew about the origin of human relationships. The story starts long before Ardi. For most of primate history, males had large dagger-like canine teeth. You still see it in chimpanzees today. Big canines mean competition. They mean males fighting other males for access to females over and over, generation after generation. But somewhere along the line, in the branch of the family tree that led to you, those teeth started shrinking. And here's what's wild about that. Smaller canines don't happen by accident. In evolutionary biology, a trait like that only shrinks if the behavior behind it stops being useful. Lovejoy's theory, published in the journal Science in 2009, was blunt teeth meant less violent male competition. Less violent competition meant something else was happening instead. Pairing up. Think about what that means for a second. Somewhere around 4 to 6 million years ago, your ancestors may have started doing something almost no other primate does at scale, forming something resembling a couple. Not marriage, not romance the way you'd picture it, but a bond stable enough that a male would consistently provision one female and her offspring instead of competing violently for many. That's not speculation, that's a testable pattern. Researchers looking at modern human anatomy still find the fingerprints of it. Anthropologist Sarah Hrdy has spent decades studying what she calls cooperative breeding, the idea that human infants are so helpless, for so long, that raising one essentially requires more than one adult committed to the task. A human baby takes 18 years to become fully independent. A chimpanzee manages it in about 8. But here's the thing. Pair bonding alone doesn't explain everything strange about human mating behavior. There's a second mystery, and it's even weirder. Almost every other mammal on Earth signals fertility outwardly. Female chimpanzees develop bright, swollen, impossible-to-miss markers when they're ovulating. Males know exactly when mating will result in offspring, and they act accordingly. Humans don't do that. Human ovulation is concealed, hidden even from the woman herself, without tracking apps or thermometers. Why would evolution hide something so important? Biologist and researcher Nancy Burley proposed one answer back in 1979, later expanded by others. Concealed ovulation forces continuous attention. If a male can't tell exactly when a female is fertile, his best strategy isn't to disappear and return once a month. It's to stick around, all the time. That constant presence is, in effect, the ancient equivalent of a security deposit on a relationship, paid daily instead of once. So here's the full picture starting to form. Small canines, concealed fertility, long dependent childhoods, 3 separate biological threads, all pointing toward the same conclusion. At some point in deep prehistory, the human mating system shifted away from raw competition and toward sustained partnership. Now here's the disturbing part. This shift wasn't gentle, and it wasn't universal. At the site of Cima de los Huesos, in the Atapuerca Mountains of Spain, researchers dated to roughly 430,000 years ago, recovered dozens of early human skeletons, mostly young adult males, showing signs of blunt force trauma. Paleoanthropologist Juan Luis Arzuaga, who led the excavation, has argued some of that violence likely centered on competition, resources, status, and yes mates. Pair bonding may have reduced everyday competition, but it didn't erase it. It just changed the stakes. Instead of constant low-level conflict, you got occasional, brutal, high-stakes conflict over who got to form those bonds at all. That's not the last twist either. Genetic studies of the Y chromosome, published by researcher Monica Carmen and colleagues in 2015, found a strange bottleneck. Around 5,000 to 7,000 years ago, the genetic diversity of human fathers collapsed dramatically, even as the general population grew. One interpretation is that a small number of powerful men, likely tied to the rise of early agricultural societies and inherited wealth, ended up fathering a hugely disproportionate share of children. Pair bonding, it turns out, isn't automatically fair. Once humans started stockpiling resources, some ancient equivalent of a dating app algorithm quietly rigged itself in favor of a few. But listen to this. Pair bonding also did something no amount of raw competition ever could. It made cooperation between unrelated families possible. A stable partnership meant in-laws. In-laws meant alliances. Alliances meant trade, shared childcare, shared defense. Anthropologist Bernard Chapais has argued that pair bonding, layered on top of existing kin networks, is one of the key reasons human societies were able to scale up from small bands to enormous cooperative groups, something almost no other primate manages. And that brings you back to Ardi. That small, blunt tooth in a 4.4 million-year-old skeleton wasn't just a dental quirk, it was the earliest physical evidence we have of a species starting to bet on partnership over conflict. A bet that eventually produced concealed fertility, absurdly long childhoods, brutal competition over resources when the bet failed, and entire civilizations when it succeeded. You carry all of it. The instinct to pair up, the instinct to stay, the jealousy when that bond feels threatened. None of it is new. None of it is uniquely yours. It's 4 million years old, worn smooth by every generation between Ardi and you. Next time you see two people holding hands on a street corner, you're watching the tail end of one of the longest-running experiments in evolutionary history. It started with a tooth that got smaller instead of sharper. It's still running today.